This is Mike Jones. You are you, and we are us. Welcome.
Good evening, Dale. And I'm not guilty. I didn't do it.
That's what we're going to explore tonight. Not about Mike, but about the county commissioners. What has the OGEC, Oregon Government Ethics Commission, what have they really said? Now, we broke this story last night. We're going to be talking about it more this evening. We have, brother, we have the document. Here it is. 100+ pages of testimony, subpoenaed records from the county commissioners. Are they guilty of violating Oregon ethics, Oregon public meeting law, what they're supposed to and not supposed to do in executive session? Is Wally Hicks involved? Yes, up to his neck. Will he get in trouble? No, he's a lawyer, and the state doesn't like going up against lawyers, not ever. So who's guilty? Mike, why don't you lead us up to this a little bit there, please, bud?
What do you mean?
Well, maybe bring people up to speed about what the heck it is I'm talking about, because maybe they don't know.
Well,
since I don't know, maybe you
there
can
have over the past months here been a number of complaints filed against the commissioners and their as to their procedure. They're supposed to be giving notifications of what they're going to be discussing in executive session, and then they have executive sessions that have no notification of what they're discussing, or they go in there to discuss something totally different than what they've notified. And there's a long list of issues with them, and so the ethics committee, or
OGEC, Oregon Government Ethics Commission.
There we go. Has found them guilty on a number of counts of the things that they have that people have filed complaints against them for.
Right. Now, one reason that this website's called badcounty.com is not because of the rivers and the trees. It's not because of the regular folks that live here. They're all pretty good people. As good as any place. Poorer, according to American government, we're the ninth, Grants Pass, the ninth poorest city in the whole nation. Grants Pass. No, that's not why it's called badcounty.com. It's called badcounty.com because we live in a county that's governed badly. Or the state knows this. Look, when I shot videotape of, here's Cheryl Walker in a meeting, not now, but you already know this, you've seen the tape. Cheryl Walker was in the meeting, and it's posted on the front door, you may not advocate for or against anything that's on the ballot during this period of time, because the ballots are out in the mail, as they are now, and hopefully you have voted. If you live in Grants Pass, you only have a few days left. You have till Tuesday. And so it says, you may not do this. We have videotape of that. And I sent it to the state. And then there's Cheryl Walker at the beginning of that meeting saying, now everybody be very careful. You're not allowed to do that. Okay, I have that on videotape. And then there's Cheryl Walker doing exactly that, what she just told everybody not to do, what the state has warned her not to do, all of us not to do, what it says on the door not to do, and there's Cheryl Walker doing it. So I sent that whole compilation to the state, and they looked at it and said, yeah, that's pretty obvious. Well, okay, what are you going to do about it? Well, yeah, there's a debate here about whether we're going to enforce any of the rules. So I was not a very happy guy. I wasn't yelling. I just don't do that. But what I said was, no expletives anyway, right? And I said, listen, despite what Dennis Weber said, no, it's not true, Mr. Leading Pastor of the county. So I said, listen, what are we supposed to do here? Because you guys are always chuckling at us. I say, I know you do. Kind of, yeah, that's true. Well, what are we supposed to do? And their answer was very clear, and I've heard this several times from the state. Why do you keep electing these people? Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's an easy answer. People aren't paying attention, and
That's
they
where we
vote
come
based
in.
on names or what they see the person's picture looks like. That looks like a nice person in the
Yes.
voter's pamphlet, and that's what they do.
Or next to his name it says Gospel Rescue Mission. How far can you go wrong?
Well, listen, right, exactly. And I've been guilty of this. When I first arrived here, it wasn't long after that there was an election. I don't know any of these people,
Should have voted then.
and I shouldn't have voted. Yes.
Not if you don't know
Well,
anything about them.
okay. Tell me you know everything about everybody on the school
No,
board that
not
comes up now.
everything.
I
But
mean,
I
come on.
don't vote for the school board if I don't know them. Mike and I have never had this conversation, as you could
Yeah.
tell. I just don't vote. If I don't know who they are, I'm not going to vote for them or against them.
Right. Well, if they're running unopposed, I'll generally, throw a vote in that person's favor because you know what? Nobody, decided to face against that person there. So what difference does it make at that point?
Well, okay, in my personal case, since you brought that up, I never vote for someone that's running by themselves. I don't like
Mm.
that. I think it's un-American. It's not that guy's
Uh,
fault, but I
and of
don't like it.
course, in a lot of people say it doesn't matter if I vote or not. I think it does.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
but they'll say that it doesn't matter. Well, in that particular case, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if that person gets more votes than there are people in the county or no votes at all. That person is going to be the next person in that office. I'm just filling a form out here.
Yes, I do
know?
understand you. And
Yeah.
it can make a big difference in the primary because, as happened with Wally Hicks, if you get 51% of the vote, there's not going to be a general election for that. The Steve
Right.
Rich never did have to run off in the second election with Wally. There were only two of them, and because Wally got 51%, election over. Wally's the next guy. He's going to have to wait 6 months before he can get in, but there doesn't need to be a general election at all. So it's also the case here is, what does guilty really mean? And we're going to actually discuss this. We're going to get to that. But here's a question for you. Here's something that you've seen that we've shown you before. Okay, here's the thing, and Simon Hare, and it says here that the police say Hare made a false police report. Now, recently we had a couple of knucklehead students over at Grants Pass High School who wrote a bomb threat in a bathroom, and they got taken off to jail. The girl did. The guy didn't, because there weren't enough juvenile beds for guys. Now, she got taken to jail. So I called Bill Landis, who is the police chief for Grants Pass, and I said, and he visited me afterwards. Not at my house, but at the city council meeting. And he said, "Did I answer your question well enough for you?" And I said, "Well, Bill, I understand a bit about the law. I try to, but you know what this looks like? That Simon Hare just skates free after the police had evaluated and found that he made a false police report, and then this girl goes to jail for making a false police report. Where's the justice in that?"
Yeah, well, I guess that tells you whether or not the scales get a little thumb on them, depending on who you are.
Well, let the scales
here.
fall from your eyes, everybody. That's just not right, in my personal opinion. Now, it could always be said, well, he wasn't really guilty, you see, because although his friends said that he was drunk, eyewitnesses said that he was drunk, he couldn't never tried to account for how he got home, and the police say he filed a false police report because the DA never brought charges, didn't want to. Why the heck would the DA not want to? Well, part of the reason may be, in fact, he even said, the DA said this, and we have a new DA now, that one of the reasons he didn't want to follow through on this is because part of his salary is paid by the commissioners. They don't have to.
Makes sense.
They don't have to.
Yeah.
They don't do that in every county. And as financially strapped as we are, isn't it interesting that we'll always have enough money for the DA to get 20% of his salary through the county commissioners? It's kind of a get out of jail free card, isn't it? Oh, no,
Yeah.
What a terrible thing to say. You know what? What's the net result, bud?
Right. And listen, if they're not doing that in other counties and we are as cash trapped as they always claim that we are, then why are we doing that? Are we paying him 20% more? I know we covered this once before. I forget what the outcome of that, or if we ever determined what the outcome was. Is he making 20% more than he would be if he were working in Jackson County? Or are we just saying, well, let the state pay 80% and we're paying 20 out of the goodness of our heart so that we have skin in the game or something?
It's closer to the second one, because he's supposed to, I interviewed the guy. He had an assistant there who was very hard to get along with, and both of them were answering in short little clipped half sentences. But I said, look, see if I've got this right. You are supposed to be paid a certain amount, 100%. That's right. And I said, and 100% could come from the state. They sort of talking to each other, sort of looking back and forth. Yes. And I said, but our county has elected to kick in 20% of that. So the state only has to put in 80, but they could put in 100. Yeah. And so why would a cash-strapped county decide to, oh, well, that was the end of that question. And we're going to talk about that anymore.
Yeah. And of course, he doesn't want to answer that question either, because this sort of thing is sort of beneficial to him too, because as long as he has them over a barrel, he has a little bit of power over them too. He may be able to finagle that they finance his department a little bit more than they normally would, because he's going to come to their, this is why dirty politics is just dirty.
Well, that's one of the reasons I always say, whenever you're at a situation and you go, that's odd, why would they do that? That's where you should be looking.
Yeah.
Right? So why would they do that with a cash-strapped county when all of it could be paid for by the state? I think Mike's right. They got skin in the game, and they've got a kind of you can't come up against us. That's what he said. I'm not making that up. I really can't follow through with this thing with Simon Hare. So Simon Hare, is he guilty of filing a false police report? Well, the police say that he is. Now, then, really what it comes down to, and the reason I brought this up, it comes down to what you say. There's not going to be a penalty. You never thought there was going to be a penalty, did you? Come on now. You guys watch this show. There's not going to be a penalty. But is he guilty in the court of public opinion? That's not good enough. Sure it is. Sure it is. I think the reason he got voted in above Mark Gatlin was that more people didn't want Mark Gatlin than didn't want Simon Hare.
Yeah. I think that's true.
What kind of choice is that? If you're living in World War II, are you going to move to Italy or Germany? Nice choice.
Yeah, I'll take Switzerland, thanks.
Yes, right. Well, in some ways, there were some similarities there, but that's for another show.
Listen.
France wasn't that different with what they did. They were delighted to get with the program.
Yeah, hindsight certainly 2020 when you're looking back at that whole game. If I was there, I would have got out of Germany and gone straight to the United States.
And a lot of people tried, and they were sent back. They were sent all the way back across the ocean. That's a long trip back in those days. They finally did escape Germany, but not the way you would think they did.
Yeah.
They became part of the clouds. This is no joke. So anyway, now to today. So are the commissioners guilty of anything? We're going to explore that. And what we're going to do is, according to the state, is this true? Okay, so we have in front of us that whole 100-page document. This was expensive to get this made, and I made copies for both of us, and I made a copy for after we talk about it tonight. Only afterwards, I made a copy for Eder Campuzano over at the Daily Courier. Yeah, there's a little competition. Yes, they make some money off of this, but we want to, and I told him, I said, I'm going to be giving you something. Now, you do with it whatever you want. If you think that your newspaper will let you, I'm going to give this to you out of my pocket. And I'm happy to do so because perhaps I didn't bother making a copy for Keijo. Are you kidding me? Okay, because gnawing on it in the corner. No, I mean, talking about people who would read this and go, wow, that's kind of interesting. It is interesting because you may recall, we're going to hit this straight on. You may recall that there was an attempt to go to the OGEC about Sandy Casanelli. There was an attempt. Oh, she did many things wrong, and so we're going to bring you up on charges. The OGEC, Oregon Government Ethics Commission, never found her guilty of anything. They did not. They could not follow through. They finally let the whole thing drop. There are people who still think that she was convicted of something. No, she wasn't. No, and what was the thought behind all that? Well, that's for another story also, but she was not. So there were two people who filed information on this complaint. I was one of them, and Sandy Casanelli was the other one. Well, you can imagine, we've got all the tape in the world that you ever want. Not of an executive session, obviously. They don't allow that to be taped. I wouldn't tape it secretly either, because that's not right, no matter who's watching. As Steve Rich told him one time, it doesn't matter because nobody's really watching over you. That's not the point. You don't do that kind of stuff. It's integrity when nobody's watching. Okay, so anyway. So she was not. So we filed this. She put in more information than I did. And so now we have the document that says what's what up to this point. It doesn't matter whether there's a small little slap on the wrist fine, $5. It doesn't matter if they get a letter of clarification about what the law is, because they already know what the law is. You want proof that they know what the law is? Why, Dale Matthews, I never saw you handing them a document saying these are the rules. Of course I did. Why, Sandy Casanelli, we never saw you sending them an email. Or it doesn't matter, because Keith Heck has said in his own words, I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care.
Well, we do have Wally sitting there in a backroom meeting explaining the rules to them. We do have that.
Yes, we do. And so Wally did do that. And then immediately afterwards, I pointed out to him that same day and the next day and the next day, they were still doing that stuff. And he just shrugged. Well, part of it may have been a sincere attempt. That's what I thought at the time, on his part, to make sure that such rules are not broken. And he just had to shrug because they didn't listen to him. The other problem is this whole complaint is revolving around executive session. Who sits in on every executive session? Wally Hicks. If they're breaking the law during Wally's sitting there, he skates? Really? How's that possible? So one of the things, go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm just wondering because I read a little teeny bit. I didn't have any time to delve into this in any depth at all.
We're gonna go more. Okay, go ahead.
But what I did see was that some of these were that these people attended an executive session and discussed topics that were not notified ahead of time.
Right.
So
they didn't follow state law.
Right. Okay. So Wally would have had to see that there wasn't a notification and knowingly, I'm going into this thing knowing that they haven't. I mean, now I don't know. Is it his job to
yes
to make sure that they have notified? So now there's a new regimen that has to be set in place where they go, we're going to have an executive session. Here, Wally, is the notification that we plan on making public. Please okay that with your stamp of approval.
Yeah,
I doubt very seriously that was the procedure at any time before.
It's supposed to be the procedure at all times. And Wally does most of the preparation of what they're going to talk about. They say to him, we think we should talk about this. So he's usually the one that puts together the list. It's his responsibility to make sure that people know what they're going to discuss. Listen, when I was sitting on an executive session, I sat in on these for 6 months. And then Simon Harris suddenly decided we're not media of any kind. What you're watching doesn't really exist. That sound familiar? And so not any of any kind. 300,000 views doesn't matter because we're not media, you see. And one of the roles that media is supposed to play, especially news media, in my opinion, is you're supposed to sit back in the back of the room and not say anything, of course. But when they veer off the subject, you're supposed to politely raise your hand and point out that they veered off the subject. But if that would be left up to a journalist or whatever Cajo purports to be, then and they don't do it, well, shame on that journalist. But shouldn't it also be up to the legal counsel to say, hey, we can't talk about that. It's not on the list. And also, it shouldn't be on the agenda at all, which I prepared, because I would never put that on there, because that's not executive session. That's not secret session. It's not necessary.
Right.
It's not okay to talk about stuff that's embarrassing. Not okay. And there has to be, the reason for this is none of us, well, I don't know about Roy Lindsay and Harry Mackin and some of those guys, but none of us really do want our government to be talking about things in secret. We want to know what they're up to. It's not okay to talk in secret. Well, somebody's got a mental problem or whatever. We got a lot of that in county government. But I mean, if they're going to talk about personnel issues like that, it really isn't any of our business. Go ahead, be secret. Totally understand that. But not embarrassing things. And so when these embarrassing things come up, it's not okay to have a little secret discussion about it, just like it's not okay to take a vote in a parking lot. It's not okay. And we demand that.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't small stuff. This is, do not operate a shadow government. Oh, that's going to get all kinds of conspiracy. Oh, you're saying, no, I'm not. I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is, you have to be open and above board. As Simon Hare puts it, we're the most open, our county government here in Josephine County is the most open, transparent government in the entire world.
Mm.
Well, somebody in Austria is crying their eyes out tonight because they thought they were. Some canton in Canton thinks that they were the ones. Well, nope, it's Josephine County. Now, our county commissioners have been found guilty. We'll see if that word applies, of breaking exactly those rules. Well, anytime anyone says we're the most of anything, or all firefighters are pedophiles, anytime anyone says something like that, automatically you need to be thinking, insanity, that can't possibly be true, that you're the best. The chief financial officer before that was cutting all kinds of financial shenanigans. They said about her, she's the best one in the world. Right. That's why I made that little speech. It was fun. I said, there's a Chinese chief financial officer who's crying her eyes out tonight because she thought she was the best in the world. No, it's Rosemary Paget of Josephine County in the middle of nowhere, Oregon. Okay, so don't say that about us. Shut up. Okay, well, I mean, please speak up, just not to me. Okay, so look, the point is that that we have this document. So we're going to be talking about the kinds of things that are in this document. And it starts off with a letter, a summary sheet that was put out by the state talking about one of the cases. You want to tell us a little bit about that first summary sheet there, Mike? There's 100 pages, so we're not going to cover this whole thing tonight.
Okay, so is this page 1 or something? This is coming into this with almost zero prep here. So
I do understand you, and you guys are going to need to be patient with us. At least you're hearing it. We're the only ones telling you about it.
Is this
the first page? Yeah, page 2, yes.
Page 2.
Oregon. Page is the cover page.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Hang on a second here. There we go. It's the Oregon Government Ethics Commission investigation, case number 15-104XDG.
Yes, just like the song.
On October 13th, 2015, respondent Heck Keith, member of the Board of County Commissioners for Josephine County, complainant in this particular case, Sandy Casanelli, recommended action, make a preliminary finding of 4 violations of ORS 192.660.
That's the one that Wally Hicks always quotes, and so do the commissioners when they say everyone must leave the room except for valid news people, which we used to be and we are no longer. Why were we before? Now we're not. Now we're bigger than ever, but now we're not. They must all leave the room under 660. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, and the synopsis here is Keith Heck served as a member of the Board of County Commissioners for Josephine County and participated in executive sessions relevant to this investigation. The focus of this investigation was to determine if there was a preponderance of evidence to indicate that the topics discussed in relevant executive sessions by the Board of County Commissioners violated the executive sessions provision of Oregon public meeting law.
They do never want to find any government guilty of anything. This is so unusual. You know, the last big time that this happened, Lane County got fined. The initial fine was $1 million, and they talked it down from that for violating not executive session, but some of the other provisions of not talking to each other and taking a vote in a parking lot kind of stuff. So this is so unusual. It had to get up to a level where it was like this before these, and you just couldn't ignore it. Not the number of cases that were filed, but just the egregious nature of the violations. And I know when one of the things they're going to read, that Keith Eck is saying something like, well, we've always tried to obey the law in every possible way. You know, one of the things that made it impossible for them to take his explanation seriously was when I sent them the information saying that he had said, I know we're breaking the law and I don't care. Well, that sort of made his denial of information and his schoolboy, you know, explanation. Well, we're totally in not to, you know, that just, I'm pretty sure that irritated them. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So a review of the information indicates that the Josephine County Board of Commissioners discussed topics in executive sessions held on 1/7/15, 1/14/15, 1/28/15, and 2/4/15 as follows.
Now, before you go any further, the reason they're all toward the beginning of the year is because there's this long delay in getting anything done by any, and they don't want to find anybody guilty of anything. These are other government people. And so this was a narrow time window, and it doesn't mean it was only happening then and never before and never after, but this was the time window that they looked at. And once you found 4 of these and find them guilty of doing these things, if that's the proper word, then you don't need to know everything that's happened before and after. You only need to know after they've been found guilty, are they still doing it? And we know after last night, yes, they are. But go ahead, Mike.
Now let me ask you, are there a number of other violations which have been complaints that have been filed after this point?
I'm not aware of that at the moment because there were 2 of us who were instrumental in compiling these. Geez, how many people are there going to be and actually have the videotape or the documents or willing to go look them up and that kind of stuff. And I personally was waiting to see what was going to happen this time. It just got up to a screaming point where there was no possible explanation. Can you skip on to page 7? Because I think before we run out of time, and we're going to, that people might want to hear what it was that Keith Heck had to say about any possible violations.
I think this is...
And it starts with Mr. Heck's letter is excerpted below on page 7 out of 100 pages.
Okay.
They had to subpoena these records. They subpoenaed them. This is serious stuff. Now, before you read what he said, then I'm going to jump in with what Cheryl Walker had to say. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Heck's letter is excerpted below.
Okay. Now stand by. Mike and I are going to try to give you a comparison between the letter from Mr. Heck excerpted below and the letter from Cheryl Walker excerpted below.
Okay. So I'll just start and you join in. Okay?
That's what I'll do because of the delay. We have to do it that way. The glasses I don't need. Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, he doesn't need glasses at all. I don't need these either. I just wear them for fun.
Yes.
I received your letter. Oh, wow. Yes, that's not.
Come on now. You're doing all right.
I'm going to have to mute you then.
Oh, yes, you will. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, I received your letter
dated April 23rd, 2015,
regarding the Commissioner's preliminary review of this case. I wish to submit evidence for your consideration in hopes that the Commission will conclude that there's no appearance of a violation and thus dismiss this matter.
Go ahead.
I want to be clear
that it has
been my intent at all times to act in full compliance with the letter and the spirit of the public meeting laws. The public meeting laws are complex,
though,
and not every law is subject to a clear
or
or universal interpretation. If despite my best efforts to comply, I have at any time made a mistake in my interpretation of the public meeting laws, I absolutely welcome feedback from the commission so that I can be in full compliance
going forward.
Yes.
One more.
So I assume so far that they are exactly alike.
It looks like it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here we go. It is also worth noting that at all times I acted upon the advice of the county legal counsel, Wally Hicks. Well, there's your out.
Now,
this letter and the attached description of the statutory basis for executive sessions were created by the Josephine County Legal Counsel and provided to by that office to each individual county commissioner. I have not met with or discussed the matter with any other members of the board of Josephine County Commissioners. Well, that's interesting. Then how did they come up with matching letters?
I really want you to note, this is very important. Notice how they said that this was under the supervision of Wally Hicks. Now, why would they say that? Because it was. But why is it so important to say that? It's so important to say that because
they're trying to absolve themselves.
And in addition to that, there's a even more practical reason. If the commission, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, finds that they acted under the advice of Wally Hicks, then the commissioners don't have to pay a big fine.
I see.
Okay, so we've got a little videotape to show you on another issue, but we're going to skip forward to the part where they're talking about the potential ramifications of all this.
And what page would that be,
Dan? Yeah, I think that would be near the end, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, we're going to go into more detail and other dates if you find this interesting. We'll know by how many of you watch this and like it. There's a little button on the bottom that says like. And if you click that one, we'll know that you like this. And if you click the other one, don't like it, then we'll know who you are because we know who those people are. Don't we? Yes. We do.
Yeah, for the most part, it's funny. The other day when I got mad at Keith, there was 2 dislikes on that. I just wonder who those people are. It's too bad because, you know, when somebody likes your stuff on Facebook, you know who they are. But when they like your stuff on YouTube, you have no idea. Could be anybody.
It could be anybody. And we ran across that in a meeting last night. Every quarter, once every 3 months. Was that what that means, Dale? Shut up. I'm trying to be helpful. They have the county commissioners and the city of Cave Junction have a quarterly meeting. And so at one point, one of the members of the audience is saying, you know, well, what about Cheryl Walker and her attitude about, well, Cheryl Walker wasn't there, but I mean, she's an elected official. And there were a couple of people in the back that are real super strong members of the Democrat Party. You shouldn't be talking about her. She's not here. Hey, you know what? She's an elected official. I think we can. But doesn't that sound like the stuff that Cheryl Walker says?
Well, not only that, it's a free country. If I want to say something about anybody, listen, I could talk about your mother if I want to. You might get up and punch me in the nose, but I have the right to say that. You can't tell me that I cannot say that. Well, I guess you could tell somebody that they can't say it too, but the other person doesn't have to listen to you.
No, they don't.
Because this is America. Hello.
I think so. Right. Well, you know, that member of the audience backed right down. How'd that happen? Hey, listen, that's an elected official. She's taken a stand about certain things. You can't speak about this. Is very much like Pat Bath and some of the, well, you should only say good things about, hey, yes, you know, what country are you from? Really? Well, the same one that Art Harvey's from. Anyone who criticizes the government is a moron.
There really are a lot of people that fantasize about, you know, how wonderful it would be if America was a communist country, or, you know, or we'll use the modern term for it, democratically socialist. You know, and you know, the bottom line is that rules like that would be actual rules.
Okay, look at the part just above recommendations on your document.
Yes, which is of course, Yeah, and I don't know what that would be.
I'll find
Does
that
it
right
have,
page for
does it have at the bottom of the page, heck investigation page, blah, blah, blah?
you. It does indeed, sir. And
Okay, well, give me that.
recommendations on page 32 for you. I was looking at
Okay.
Cheryl Walker's, and it's the section just before that. It appears that the county board meets weekly.
Weekly? Yes, very weekly.
Yes. Can you
No.
read that part, please, sir? That's on page 31 near the bottom.
31.
This is a big document. We're doing the best we can with it. And we just got the document in our hands today. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
It
appears that the county board meets weekly in executive session, and it seems the specific topics to be discussed at any executive session and the corresponding provision of ORS 192.660 that authorizes that topic should be known and reflected in the county records, even in the rare instances when a matter is brought up due to emergent.
It's weird. Emergency conditions.
Yeah. Okay. Due to emergent.
Yeah. They mean
emergent, I guess. Yes, of course. It's just a very.
It's weird.
It's just not common. That's not a common usage. Okay. Investigators 4/14/15 memo summarizing telephone discussions and an email from, you know what? Am I reading the right page here?
No, you're not now.
I don't think I am.
That top of page 32 is what you should be reading now. But
yeah, well, you know what?
Let me pick it up from there.
There's a skipped missing page in my
emergent
PDF,
circumstances after the agenda is published. The topic and its authorized statute could and should be noted in the county minutes for each executive session. Look, you might say, that's boring. No, it's not. Shouldn't they be noticing what they're talking about as state law? Even if you think, well, I don't know why that's it is state law, and they swore to uphold it. They put their hand on a Bible. They're supposed to tell us what they're talking about. Everybody should be nervous about them talking about stuff in secret. And so unless they're squeaky clean about that, then they're probably going to be gummy dirty. I mean, not good. Okay. So there's no dispute that the board members had legal counsel in attendance. Now, how is it possible that if this guy's preparing if he's there at the meeting, he should be saying, now wait, we can't talk about that. It's not on the agenda. We get precious little as it is. We're going to talk about economic development. First of all, why is economic development in a secret session? It shouldn't be. And if they're going to talk about something, then it needs to be listed. And he can read English, right? It's not listed. So don't talk about it. Well, we need to. Well, you'll have to talk about it next time. Economic development is not an emergency that you have to talk about in a secret session.
I have the right page now.
Okay, go ahead.
What was in conclusion? All right, hang on just a second here. And I'll put it over there so everybody can see it.
Good.
Okay. In conclusion, information is sufficient to indicate that topics not authorized for consideration in executive session by ORS 192.660 were discussed at executive session held by the Josephine County Board of Commissioners, and that Keith Heck participated in those executive sessions held on the following 4 dates: 1/7/15, 1/14/15, 1/21/15, and 2/4/15.
Now, my copy of Cheryl Walker's information says that she was at 3 of them because she wasn't there at a 4th one. Okay. So what they found is that it's very clear that they violated the law. Okay. Does that mean that they're guilty of violating the law? It's very clear that they violated the law. Are they then guilty of violating the law? What say you, Mike Jones?
Well, I mean, doesn't this commission, don't they issue a declaration to that effect?
Yeah, and we're going to talk at a future point about, as soon as we can, and I found the exact wording here, exactly what they're saying. But I believe there's no doubt about it. If they violated that section of the law, that they're guilty of violating that section of the law. I mean, some people don't like the word guilty. Well, they're not going to go to jail.
Yeah.
that's the bad part, in my opinion. But they're not going to go to jail, okay? But here's the thing that's really at stake here. When the state says, why don't you elect different people? Now it's truly back to us. It really is. Because if we don't make a difference, and this next time around, and you pick Keith Heck again, who's sure he's doing a great job because he's going to run again. Cheryl Walker, we don't know yet. But if you pick these same people again, if you were at the state and you didn't want to do this in the first place, and you did it based on evidence now up to here, right? And then the people went ahead and elected those folks again, I wouldn't give them another piece of attention. I'd leave them alone.
Yeah, you got a point there. You know, I mean, the interesting thing to me is that how hard is it when you're putting together the thing that the last thing at the bottom of the checklist is, have I fulfilled the legal obligation?
Yes. Here? It should be the first thing, but yes, the last thing. Okay.
Well, no, what I'm saying is though, when you're at the bottom of the thing and you're about to put the notice out, your last thing after you've done it all should be just to take a look and go, is this legal?
Okay, so why did we pick executive session? Because we picked a lot of things. Remember the one I told you about, Cheryl violating the election law and all the rest of that? Why pick executive session? Because the strong feedback that we got from the OGEC is that what they want to pay attention to more than anything else is executive session. Why would that be the case? Because there's no supervision. We used to be there supervising it. We were your supervisors. And then they banned us from the meetings because we're not really media, you see. This is why we can never be media. Remember when I had that discussion with Simon here and on the sidewalk? Remember what he said to us, Mike?
As to whether or not we were not, I don't remember exactly. No.
Okay, but close enough. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Simon
I don't
here
remember having that discussion, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, Simon. Well, actually, Mike, you asked him because I started and then you said, "Yeah, why is that?" And Simon says, "You will never be accepted as members of the media." I said, "We used to be." He said, "Well, not now. That's never going to happen."
Yeah, media. I don't remember that, but
yeah, okay. Well, that did it, and it was in front of that goofy Ashland.
There was a lot of stuff happening in that conversation. Okay. I was kind of ticked off at him because we were discussing the difference between, his way of doing things and the Republican Party policy.
Oh yeah, well,
and that's what I was sticking to. I pretty well had accepted that they're not going to give us a media pass.
What does media mean anyway? I mean, do you need to work for an organization at the city Grants Pass City Council? They were upset that we didn't have a
business license.
I'll complete that in a moment. Go ahead. You don't have a business license, Mike? Well, that's the connection with Mike. Okay, so we didn't. Oh, there he is back. Okay, good. One of the questions asked at the Grants Pass City Council meeting was, well, do you have advertisers? Do you have a boss? I said, yeah, we got a boss. Our boss is the people. And no, we don't have advertisements. And so, how serious can you be? Really? Is this the definition of what media is? You know what Dan Mancuso at the Illinois Valley News has done with that thing about advertisers. So this is where the problem is. So I wanted to know if there was. I wanted to someone to come out and say what's going to happen with this thing about being recognized, because we were then. What's the difference? We're bigger now than we were then, much bigger. Well, they don't want anybody watching over them. We weren't going to videotape it. We weren't going to. We can't. We weren't going to reveal what happened back there, but we'd see them, and that's more than enough. They didn't like that, and every time they had an executive session, for example, when Sandy Casanelli was commissioner, I was there. Of course, I was there, and she said before you started showing up, they would just beat up on me in executive session, and now they're not doing it because there was no witnesses. So we've got So now that this has happened, and how risk adverse these commissioners are, they really are. Anything having to do with legal, anything. This is why I said I think that this deal with the fire standards is going to go underground now, or whatever you would call it. They're going to go into executive session about this because they don't want to discuss this in public. They'll figure some kind of reason. Well, it's about contracts. No, it's not. But they'll say that it is just so they don't have to discuss it in front of you. So Mike and I went to a meeting last night of a joint meeting, City Council of Cave Junction and County Commissioners, at which point you would think now that Keith Heck, because he knew this was coming, and well before we got our copy, he got his copy. And now that they've been found to have violated state law, would you think he would be like a bad sunburn, maybe a little extra sensitive to even the blowing of the wind? Here's what happened at that meeting. Now, keep in mind, it's not Keith Heck that's saying this. It's the mayor of Cave Junction, Carl Jacobson. And the thing to watch on this is to see, is it true that first they talk about ODOT, and one of the city councilors says, gee, I wish ODOT would get involved because our city business is happening out here. They're in a quorum of city councilors. I've never seen that before at these meetings. I've never seen them in a quorum before. They were in a quorum. You know what the quorum rules are, because Mike and I have told you many times. And so they want to know what the county is also doing. I put on the first part here so you could see that they were talking about city business. Keith Heck is there in attendance also. He knows now for sure what the rules are, even though he said, gee, we were sort of confused, even though we've given him a copy of the rules too. And then find out right after Carl Jacobson, the mayor, says what kind of meeting this is, because somebody wanted to ask a question. What does Keith Heck say? It's very short. Go ahead, Mike.
If there's anything that ODOT could do to make that a safer stretch of road, I think it would be much appreciated by a lot of people, because it's kind of scary trying to recognize fast when it's getting in our regular stuff. People are speeding bad drivers. I don't know what could be done, but if that could be brought up as a county concern to ODOT, I would appreciate that.
They get a ticket, they get fairness. I know there's one character that passes every time going that thing. He's late for work.
In the last several years, 3 or 4 years, I can think of at least 4 people that died.
Sorry, it's so hard.
Driver's license way in that number.
I don't know if there could be anything done in the structure of the road.
Yeah.
And it's always been right now. Check it out.
So it needs to be, we fix that.
I see the winter time. Just like down my street or down on the gun house, down that hill, I see him in winter time.
Too far south.
We did get a grant for repaving from 199 to.
It's on River Street.
Yeah, it's River Street. What's that?
And Sawyer or something?
Sawyer.
Yeah.
First Street. One goes to that.
So because you're bringing that over the fly.
Doesn't mean you get the discounts.
No. Yeah. So, what's the county's stance now with regard to cannabis dispensaries? First, and second for recreational.
The county does not have anything other than the state hand.
Can you guys all just talk a little louder?
This is a private meeting.
Yeah.
Well, actually, anytime there's elected officials in the room, it's not private for media, so.
What is he saying? I prepared this because I'm going to turn it into the state about the city. Carl Jacobson said, this is a private meeting. This is a private meeting. No, it's not. There's a quorum of city councilors there. That's not a private meeting. Keith says, yeah. Keith, have you learned nothing from your experience with the OGEC? Nothing. And then, unfortunately, I'm not going to edit this. I'm going to send it into the state as it is, but what a stupid thing to say. Then Dan Mancuso said, of the Illinois Valley News said, as long as there's public officials in the room, that's not right. That's not what the law says. I mean, it'd be helpful if you're going to hold forth on this if you knew what the law said. It's not that difficult. When there's a quorum and you're talking about business that properly belongs before that body, like, the traffic and the relationship with ODOT and the relationship with the county and all the rest of that, then you must keep minutes. Well, they're not keeping any minutes. You can't say it's a private meeting. Private meeting? What the heck are you saying?
Well, and it was kind of odd too, because normally, okay, if you're going to have a meeting like that, somebody would call it to order and there would be some formality there. They all just came in, sat down at the table and started shooting the breeze. It's not the, so I guess there should have been some formality there where the thing was called to order and it could, but private, the room was full of people. One of them was just mad because they weren't talking loud enough for him to hear. So
right now, Mike and I talked about this ahead of time, and if you said, well, this is a private discussion during a meeting, and it's a workshop and people are not allowed to input or ask questions, I don't like it. But yeah, that happens. The county has workshops in the little back room.
Yeah, but that's not what he said. He did say it was a private meeting, and that's not necessarily true in this particular, or not at all true. And certainly, when you've got people all around you, you don't have any expectation of privacy.
No, you don't.
You could say it's a private discussion, as in these people are privy to the discussion and you are not. You're welcome to hear it, but you can't input or something like that.
The only way that the word privy fits into this discussion is an old-fashioned definition of that word. And you guys know what we mean. It's sort of scatological. But anyway, look, the point is that these, except for the guy all dressed up in the green t-shirt at the end, all the rest of them have been notified by me, if nobody else, what the rules are. It doesn't take a scholar. It's all written in English. They give even examples of this kind of thing in the Oregon Public Meeting Law. And it's a good idea to know what that is. If you think that you want to serve in government, you want to know something about the Oregon Meeting Law. And you don't need to be an expert. You just read what it says. Oh, don't meet in secret. Okay. Oh, be sure to tell people what you're going to talk about so that they know, like happened at Gold Hill recently. People didn't know that they were going to talk about something that was important to them, marijuana laws. They didn't know. They actually took a vote. And then later they had to reverse it. We shouldn't have taken a vote about that. Why did they find that out? Because they told them. You can't take a vote without telling people you're good, because maybe they would want to come and say, I hate marijuana. Get rid of it. I love marijuana. Had more. Let's all smoke marijuana at the meeting. They could say anything they wanted to, but not if you don't tell them. That's transparency. That's what government transparency is, not the rest of this falderall, these fluffy words. Why, I would love to be informed by you about what the rules are, because they're so complex. They're not complex at all. Don't buy that bull that they're complex. They're not. Mike, you want to talk about the complexities?
No, I just think that, I guess when people have told you before that there's no controlling legal authority, you become complacent and lazy, and you just go, well, I don't have to really go by that because nobody's towing that line. Nobody's making me toe that line. So I'm not going to toe that line. And you would hope that, well, I think probably the most important thing to do is read through the thing and have an understanding of what that law is there to protect. It's there so that that transparency exists, and that you don't, that you're not able to legally put one over on your citizenry. And knowing that, you should have a moral code that would not allow you to violate that because you have some ethical code or something. You would hope.
Now that Keith Heck has been found guilty on all 4 counts, wouldn't you think that he'd be just a little bit more careful about such things? And what did he say? Carl Jacobson said, this is a private meeting. What did Keith Heck say right after Carl Jacobson?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't watching for the changes there. If you want me to roll that back and we watch the end part of that again.
Let's do that. Let's roll that back.
Okay.
Listen to what Keith Heck says.
Let me cue that back just a few seconds so that we can see that.
This is a private meeting.
Yeah.
Well, actually, anytime there's elected officials in the
That's it.
Yeah, well, that was pretty clear. That was pretty
Keith Heck
clear.
agrees that it's a private meeting.
He wasn't mumbling that under his breath. He was like,
Nope.
yeah.
He has not learned a lesson. Hopefully you have.
Well, you know what? When you get used to being the king, it's hard to step down. Or it's hard to, I don't know.
The mob is at the door.
He didn't want to sign the Magna Carta.
No, he did not want to sign it. And that guy went back on it afterwards. And such is the beginning of the history of the Constitution of the United States of America.
That's right. That's absolutely correct.
Fellow citizens, you have now been partially informed. Would you please tell your neighbors about what's going on here? I'm going to give this copy tomorrow to the new reporter at the Not So Daily Courier. We'll see if anybody at all. I'll be on Bill Meyer tomorrow morning telling him what's happened. He's pretty upset about this kind of stuff and thinks that it's amazing, incredible that the state's taken any action. And I have to admit, he is completely right. But I'm going to say this one more time. Gee, I hope it's this one more time. Shut up. Okay. It's now up to us. It truly is. Now that the state has finally done something they didn't want to do in the first place. I mean, they were thinking it wouldn't make any difference. They were telling me it wouldn't make any difference because we always vote the same kind of people in. And it doesn't matter whether it's Keith Heck this time or it's Fibber McGee. It doesn't matter who they are.
That's like the same excuse that the commissioners would give down here for not following the law. I mean, for crying out loud, that's these people's job. And if they don't have enough people in that department to keep up with the people that are violating ethics around the state, maybe they ought to hire a few more people.
I absolutely agree with you. And there's something called the writ of mandamus, since we're going just a little bit further here, which says if you don't do your job, that you can be called up on charges. But of course, you need to have a lawyer to take in. Who has that kind of money? They're counting on the fact that we don't have any money. Why, we're going to get the money together, Dale. No, you're not. No, you're not. I know you mean well, love you to death, but you're not going to do that. Okay. So it is up to us. We have to solve these problems here. We have a solution that's coming up right away. It's coming up in 6 months. And that everybody's being replaced. Carl Jacobson, that mayor you just saw, he's being replaced. Okay, one can hope. Keith Heck is convinced he's doing a great job. Someone's telling Keith Heck what a great job he's doing. He's believing them. He's going to run. We got all kinds of people running. So if you have Roy Lindsay running, why bother? If you've got Mark Gatlin running, what are you doing? You're going to get the same thing, maybe worse. You're really going to need to vote for somebody this next time, whoever it is, that knows what the law is. We know what the law is, says Keith Heck, and cares. Else, and if you're not talking with your neighbors about this, I know you are. I believe that you are. When you say you are, I believe that you are. I hope you are. Good night, everybody.